Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry for that. I think we found our gremlin. We're going to stay away from break number 2 for the rest of the evening, and hopefully everything will hold tight, and we will fix that in the off-air. Again, thought we had our problem solved. I think we finally figured it out. It's always right around when we're trying to run that break. Hopefully it will hold as we get closer to break 3 here. Knock on wood. Apologize. We're back on across the board in all our platforms. We hope you will at least try and join us again. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. That's how you get a hold of us, and that's how we keep this conversation rolling along. Another team that's off to a hot start, but I have a lot of questions about, would be the Center Colonels. Greg Mason's squad is 12-2 overall, 3-0 in conference action after wins at home against Rhodes and Hendricks this weekend, including today. They beat Rhodes 68-61, defeated Hendricks 72-56 today. They got Oglethorpe and Barry as they hit the road for the next, 4 games. We'll have Millsaps and Birmingham Southern on the other side. A lot of questions about the Colonels, a lot of questions about the SAA, a lot of figuring it out to do, as it were. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is the aforementioned Mason of Greg. Sir, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, Dave, always great to speak with you, my man.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, as always. We don't talk as much as I think we used to, which is par for the course sometimes with programs, but you guys seem to be kind of in the fray, as it were. So you're 12-2, look pretty good, but we got a slobber knocker with Augustana that we probably need to also figure out, and that's where I sit there with questions. I don't know what to make of the Colonels this season. What do you make of your own squad this season?
Well, Dave, we're off to a really good start, 12-2, and I apologize for my voice. We just, as you said, we just played today, and I got my Tom Izzo voice going on right now. But off to a 12-2 start, have some good wins. We matched our best start in school history. And started off 8-0, a lot of good wins, and then we met this team named Augustana, which I know we're going to talk about as well. But hey, 2 good resume wins for us, and we beat Swanee at home. Swanee is 13-1, really good team, and then about 10 days ago we beat Washington and Lee at Washington and Lee, and Chris has a really good team down there, a top 50 caliber team. So I think we got a good team, and how good we're going to find out here in the next couple of weeks.
You hit to the 2 that that besides Augustana that jumped out at me. You did have that win against W&L, and W&L's gotten some solid wins this season as well. You also, Swanee looks like it's been a good team this year. You've got the win over TCNJ, or not a win, but a close loss to TCNJ. And sometimes I put just as much stock in a loss as I do a win. You seem to have the pieces there, but let's be honest, Greg, you and I have talked about this juncture of a season as well, and then we don't talk again. Is this team different than in the past 5 seasons, let's say, and we're going to continue talking about the Colonels? Or do you guys still have a little bit of a learning curve here?
I sure hope so. I would love to speak with you as much as possible. I always enjoy it. And what I'll tell you, Dave, is we've had some really, really good teams. I mean, the late 2000, 7, 8, and 9, those teams were special. It'd be hard to get to that level again. We're going to try. 13, 14, 15 were really, really good. And then, Dave, we got really young. We had a couple of recruiting classes for other reasons. Things didn't always work out. And then all of a sudden we looked up, and in 2016 we were all freshmen. And it's just hard to do that at this level. The one-and-done model does not work in Division III.
No.
And so we were really, really young. And now these kids are juniors and seniors. We've probably won 2 or 3 games this year, last possession, that we could not have won 2 years ago. So it's a talented team. We are not playing our best basketball just yet, or that's what we're counting on. And every day we just need to come to practice, get a little bit better. But I remember Jay Wright saying, and I guess it was 2016 when he won it, that he didn't really know how good his team was until late January.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying we're national championship good, but how good we are,
sure.
Still a little bit to be determined. So we're going to have to see how much better we get.
Let's talk about the Augustana game. Let's get that one out of the way, maybe. At home, you got Gray to come to your place.
Actually, Dave, it was in Rhodes.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, it was a tournament at Rhodes in Memphis.
Yep, our schedule sometimes doesn't love to give all those details away. It was at Rhodes. 90-64 was the result. Certainly, listen, you came in undefeated at the time. I think a lot of people had eyes on you. I suspect as a head coach, you knew, even if it's a close loss, it's a statement game for you. 90-64 was probably the worst outcome you expected, and what happened? I mean, what was the genesis of all of that, as it were?
Yeah, and Dave, let me say this: in all of my time in Division III basketball, and I'm approaching 25 years, player, coach, and everything, I've always confidently said that Worcester 2007 was the best I've ever seen in person. Those guys played us in the, I think, second round NCAA tournament. Well, Dave, 2019 Augustana is right there. Huge, 6'11", 6'9" at the 5 spot. They're 4-man, 6'6". They're skilled, well coached, and oh, by the way, they have an All-American point guard. So we played as hard as we possibly can, and maybe the best we've played all year long for about the first 27 minutes. And at the 13-minute mark, I think we're down 5, and we're right there. We're battling with them, and then they just hit another gear and just left us. They shot 81% in the second half, and I want to say they were 8 of 9 from three-point. And when Augustana goes 8 of 9 from three-point, nobody in the country is going to touch them. And I'm saying, they could probably beat some Division I teams where they played against us that day. So it was 190-64. It was a closer game than that. I think they were a good 12, 15 points better than us that day, and they just were so hot, and there was just nothing. They devastated us in the last 13 minutes of the game. Like I said, Gray has a team that can definitely win a national title.
Sure, yeah, we'll be talking to Gray after this. Not that was intended, but it happened to work out.
Yeah, they're really good, really, really good.
Well, you got the victory the next day over Blackburn, so you at least forgot about it, came back, won 86-72, because those kinds of games can be the ones that can unscrew a team for a few days, a few weeks.
Right.
So what was the message out of that game, though? Because sometimes it's about the message more than it is about the result.
Yeah, good question, Dave. And the fact that we talked about that, and me as a coach, being around, have seen, so many good teams in the NCAA tournament, like I said, 2007 Worcester and some others, some North Central teams. I kind of knew we were going into a little bit of a buzzsaw, and our team has been getting better. 14 wins as freshmen, 17 wins last year. Hopefully, we keep incrementally going up. And I knew, Perry Ayers, Jacob Bates, that guys that had not seen that level of play. I knew it was going to be a good test. And we saw what elite looked like, and we saw that we weren't quite there. Guys had a players meeting that night and said, hey, we need to do this better, this better, this better. Attention to detail. So it was a good learning experience for us. And then we came back and played really well against Blackburn. So I felt good about that. So all in all, other than the fact that, it's a tough loss from 90-64, it was a good learning experience for us.
This is a squad that certainly got experience, but I don't think it jumps out to anybody, if that makes any sense. You've got, one senior on the squad, a good handful, mess of juniors. I'm sorry, 2 seniors on the squad. A whole mess of juniors certainly help. Is this a young squad? Is this an experienced squad?
It's an experienced squad. We have some talented freshmen, but only one is really getting an opportunity to see much time on the floor just because, we have 2 seniors, Tucker Stein and Jared Griffin, who have been through a lot of battles and seen a lot of big games. We have a really good junior class led by Perry Ayers, Jacob Bates, and Art Walker, and they've seen tough games as well. So we're junior and senior dominated. So we're an experienced team, and most nights we play pretty well.
So what's going to be the key this year? What can you go back to previous seasons where you guys had hot starts and say, hey, remember what happened here? Or is it far enough back or enough into the memory banks, as it were, that it's not relevant, that this year is about this year and it's about what you're doing now?
Yeah, and I would say typically yes, but this group has actually, none of these guys were part of any of the conference tournament titles we've had recently.
Sure.
Now, we won the regular season last year, so Tucker and Jared have not played in that championship game just yet. So it's all new experience for them. And, let's be honest, Dave, today's generation is a little bit more about the here and now. So
is true.
I don't know if 3 or 4 years would make that much of a difference, but it's a new group. We have talent. We have athletic talent. And on nights that we shoot the ball well, like we did at W&L, 11 for 16 from three-point, we can play with about anybody in the country outside the top 10. And I've told the guys that, obviously right now we have proven we're not at the level at an Augustana, probably not the level of a Williams, Amherst, but let's keep working and maybe we can get there by the end of the year.
You're shooting 46% from the floor, 34% from beyond the arc, 73% from the line. You're out-rebounding your opponents by about 3. You're holding on to the ball and handing it out at a good clip. All of those are certainly keys. You've got 4 guys in double figures, and Jacob Bates at at 13, Perry Ayers at about 12, Tucker Sign at 11, and just under 10 for Art Walker. All of those numbers on the stat sheet, you look at and go, oh, okay, that's not too bad. But what about this team do we not know by looking at the stat sheet? What is it that's making it click?
Yeah, well, sharing the ball, and we did a really good job today in the second half. As you said, we have our leading scorers averaging 13 a game, and then we have 4 guys like right there. So by the end of the year, somebody's going to probably jump up and start averaging 15 points a game. So we have balance. If Jacob's not on one night, Perry was really good today. So we have balance. We're not relying on one guy, but it's something that we got today, and I was pleased with, is we're starting to kind of get a little bit of an identity on the defensive end. Our guys are realizing that we're a jump shooting team, and when the shots don't go in, and for 5 straight halves, we shot below 40%. And today, I could kind of start seeing the wheels turning. Hey, we've got to become a better defensive team, and the guys did it. So I do think our best basketball is in front of us, and we just need to get on the practice floor and have some good practices and get ready for some tough games.
You're outscoring your opponents by about 6. You're only allowing about 66 points a game, but you're allowing 41% from the field, which most coaches that will point to that as their big key number. All right, so the SAA, I hinted this at the beginning of the show. The SAA kind of reminds me of the Landmark. In both conferences, kind of spun out of something else, or in Landmark's case, out of several something else's. And I think a lot of people had high expectations. You got some good squads being put together in this group. These squads should compete. They should, they'll fill a niche, or as it were. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be a national conversation. No disrespect, but the SAA and Landmark haven't lived up to that line necessarily. And maybe it was partially the fault of people like myself who had too high an expectation. Does it feel the same in the SAA that you guys haven't made your statement? Maybe a little bit of flash at the beginning, but the conference hasn't kind of risen to the occasion? Or are we just completely underappreciating what this conference is really about?
No, Dave, I think you have a point, and I would say that if you spoke with all 8 of our league coaches, we'd all say the last 2 years we've admittedly been down, all of us. It's been I don't know whether it's a little bit, sticker price, schools,
Sure.
Just a lot of different things come into it. But we have not been at the level of the old SCAC. And I tell you, part of that, too, is the fact that we've all been so young the last couple of years. And now this year it's much better. We haven't seen a lot of the teams in our conference, but we have seen Swanee 13-1 in the Massey ratings. And sometimes the Massey ratings tell you good stuff and sometimes not. But
I like the second part of that.
Well, they have Swanee at 41 and us at 42. So that's showing that we're starting to get a little bit of a better top of the conference. And then you look, and Millsaps is 10-4. Yeah. Barry's 9-4. Mitch Cole is in there. Really good coach over the years. And so I think our league is starting to come up. And a big part of that is our players are starting to get to their junior and senior years. So with the last 2 years, Dave, I mean, it's been as bad as it has ever been. But I think a big part of that is a lot of freshmen and sophomores in the league. So I think you're going to start seeing better play, and hopefully 1 or 2 of us get to the NCAA tournament and we start making a little bit of noise because it's time to do that.
6 of the 8 teams are above 500 right now. Oglethorpe at 7-7 overall. Hendricks at 5-9. Rhodes at 3-11. So obviously, as you said, it's a little different than the last couple of years. But you also hinted at that other thing. The NCAA is kind of where you make your flash, and this is where you kind of make the point. I know going to center is a fun place in the NCAA tournament, unless it's pouring sleet, as it was on my particular occasion. But it's a great gym. It's a great facility. The fans really get on board. How important would it be to not only be in the tournament, but to maybe be at home?
Oh, it'd be amazing. We've had some great games in here, and our last NCAA tournament win was against LaGrange here in 2014. And, our students, our president, John Roush, I mean, there'd be so much excitement on this campus, and our guys, they would love that too. So we talk about it, but we just have to, we need to make sure we're playing really, really good basketball from this point forward.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking time to talk about the Colonels. I'm fascinated. We've got the jersey just hiding over my shoulder. If anybody's watching, we always appreciate that.
And Dave, I have a great story for you about that jersey.
Go for it.
So the number 23 jersey right over your left shoulder, the guy who wore that number for us is now a reality show TV star. How about that one? Yeah, Trey Russell wore that jersey back, I want to say like around 2010, 11, 12, somewhere around there.
Okay.
He was on the show Married at First Sight.
Okay.
And now I'm sure absolutely none of our listeners follow that show, but my wife and all of her friends know about it. And Trey's a big deal. It's followed by over 25,000 people on Twitter.
That's impressive.
That's the story behind that jersey.
I got a letter. I don't know who it was from. It may have been just the person who handles jerseys asking me what my number was. I played sports. I had a number, and the next thing I know, I had that thing in the studio. It is one of just 3 that are framed. The reason for it, to tell you a story, is the Ohio Wesleyan Women's 22 is framed because it was signed by. Of course, go and forget the one important name in Division III women's basketball. The last 10 years, she died of cancer, and so she signed. It was part of a fundraiser. We got it.
Yeah.
The Greenville one, number 25, is because it was framed when it was given to us. So it stayed framed. And then yours was framed because it was the first jersey that was sent to us. So we framed it, and it's my number. So it's framed accordingly. So it is over my shoulder. I don't know if that's its permanent home. We keep playing with our backdrop, but we appreciate the decorations, as it were, for the studio. Sir, Lauren Hill. Thank you, Jeff. I can't believe I forgot Lauren Hill's name. We're off to a roaring start here in 2019. Greg, as always, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, I mean, D3 basketball is amazing. Go out and watch a game. Anybody who has not. I mean, the guys, Brad Stevens, Shaka Smart, Jeff Van Gundy, the list goes on and on. Yep. Thanks for all you do, Dave, and giving us a great voice. I mean, your sites, everything like that. I mean, just it really helps schools like a Center College. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. By the way, Jeff Van Gundy's jersey will be hanging in this studio sometime soon as well, believe it or not. Yeah, well, not his actual jersey, but his number. Coach, thanks so much. Take care. Good luck in the SAA. Look forward to hopefully talking to you later in the season.
You bet, Dave. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Greg Mason joining us here on the Hoopsville hotline. Again, I appreciate his frankness. Is this team for real? Is this conference for real? I think it's a question a lot of people have, and I appreciate his frankness on answering those questions. Going to take another break. When we come back, avoiding the magic break 2 button, when we come back, we will talk to men's basketball coach Greg Giovanni, who dispatched the Colonels rather easily a few weeks ago. We'll talk to him about his squad and just how good they may be this season. They're darn good. You just heard Greg Mason talk about it. I'm interested to hear what he has, Greg Giovanni, to say about the team in Rock Island. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. We'll be back with more right after this.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
UW Eau Claire and Mayo Clinic Health System are creating amazing opportunities for students from across the Midwest. Our collaborative research agreement allows students to work with world-renowned physicians and scientists. And with more than 80 majors, UW Eau Claire is the perfect fit for those who dream big and are ready to change the world.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, here from the WBCA NABC studios. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Thanks to the tweet from Greg Mason saying, I'm the best. Thank you for all you do. Well, I appreciate it, sir. Kind words from Coach Mason there at center. Good to hear from him. This is a warning to all of you Illinois fans in the CCIW and elsewhere, as we're about to talk to Augustana men's basketball coach Gray Giovanni. Once again, I am taping the Chicago Bears wildcard game. Okay, folks? Silence. Mum is the word. Doing pretty good. I have no clue what's going on in that game. I had to tape the Ravens game earlier, then watch that since I was prepping for Hoops. So watch that while the Bears game then got started. Was disappointed in how the Baltimore game was, but not surprised. Not surprised, but disappointed nonetheless. Then had to go back to focusing on Hoopsville, having dinner with my family, etc. Again, it's on the DVR, and if anybody of you ruin it, I will ban you. I kid. I just had to get that out of the way one more time. Once again, if you got questions, send them our way. Brennan asked us a while ago, he says, who do I think is the second best team in the CCIW on the men's side? I don't know who the second best team in the CCIW is on the men's side, to be blunt. I thought it was Illinois Wesleyan. There's times I've thought it was Wheaton, but Wheaton has frustrated me at times. North Central looked really good in Vegas. I thought, well, maybe they can surprise. Nope, they took a loss this week, too, that I thought would be a better game than it turned out to be. By the way, they lost to Augustana, 76-59, including Blaze Meredith hitting his head on the backboard. That is not worth points. I don't know who's second after Augustana, to be blunt. Maybe Gray Giovanni knows who's second on that list and can answer it for us. He joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. And, sir, thank you for taking the time and joining us here tonight.
My pleasure, Dave. Good to connect with you.
I'll just say, my Bears comment earlier about not watching the game, I mentioned that to Gray just to be safe because I had a bad feeling he might say something, and he started laughing. I don't know what it means. I just know that Gray's having way too much fun with this than he should be. I just know that thanks to at least one result here, I don't have my ultimate fear in the Super Bowl, and that's my two teams facing off. Though, to all my Baltimore fans, I've been rooting on the Bears. Gray, let's start with this one. Who is the second best team in the CCIW right now?
Well, you're being pretty presumptuous there. I'm not sure who the best team is. I know.
I knew you were going to go that way.
And I've got such tremendous respect for everybody in the league. You know, we were going in to play North Park last night, and they were picked last in our league, and they've got 2 wins in our league against 2 teams that I think are very good, North Central and Wheaton.
Yeah,
and we haven't played or seen Wheaton or our opponent Elmhurst, who's obviously having a terrific year. So I think there's the one thing I would say, Dave, I think there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of balance in our league, and I think a lot has yet, obviously, to play out.
I agree with you. I mean, Elmhurst at 4-1. I didn't want to ignore them at 9-5. You mentioned North Park 2-4 in the season, but those 2 wins over Wheaton and North Central. Of course, a game that North Central unfortunately had an unfortunate. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the Wheaton North Central game. Sorry,
right.
Getting those all conflated in my head due to a tough injury, which I then saw in the Dallas game last night in football. But yeah, and then you go and take care of North Park 109-64. It didn't make things any easier. Your one loss is to Loris in a heck of a game. I watched that one, 74-73. That one on the road back in November. You guys had a really weird start to the season. The fact that you started all 4 games on the road before coming home, and you didn't start easy with that. You had an overtime thriller with Stevens Point. You guys really went at it this season, didn't you, in the scheduling? Well,
we did. We have a veteran team and have great expectations. And it's tough to schedule too far out, but we knew this was a team that, had the bar set very high, and so we wanted to get a good challenge in early. And so I think our strength of schedule is, in the top 10 or 12 in the country. And so it's been very challenging and, exposed us some early. And I think it'll be a schedule that really helps us as we continue into conference play and as we look toward the postseason. I know you just had Greg Mason on. I thought our win over Center was really big. And that score of that game was a little bit misleading. Mm-hmm. I agreed with Greg that was a 4-point game with about 12 minutes to go, and then we just really got it going. But I think they have a very good team. Obviously, Stevens Point was a great win for us. WashU, Wesleyan, Loras has a very good team, and mm-hmm. So yeah, we've a tough schedule and by design.
Yeah, of course the wins are important. Yes, you lost to Loras, but that's it. You got wins over Stevens Point. You've got a win over Illinois Wesleyan, who's confusing folks as well, losing 5 of their last 7, but it may not tell the whole story. You beat a WashU team that's kind of retooling itself. North Central, listen, I saw them in Vegas, Gray, and they impressed me because they were better than I expected them to be. I think they're a little too much Connor Raritan sometimes, but Blaze Meredith off the bench is certainly good. They've got other guys who certainly play well. I was surprised that game was 76-59. Is that another example where the score doesn't tell the story?
No, we were up 20 with 7 minutes to go.
Okay,
on that one.
So it does tell the story.
It does, but they've had a couple of debilitating injuries.
Yeah,
they've lost 2 starters, and the one, of course, the horrific injury. And I tell you, it was a sickening injury, but it was really kind of reassuring. I saw him at our game, and great attitude, looked good. You always feel better when you see a kid after an injury.
Yeah.
And they're a big guy that tore his ACL. And
yep.
So those were 2 tough injuries, and yet they come back last night and have a great win over Elmhurst, who was undefeated in the league. So as I said earlier, I think there's pretty good balance throughout the conference.
By the way, was he tooling around behind? Was there enough room behind the bench for him to wheel behind it? Because we gave him a luxury in Vegas, and I thought his coaches might kill him by the end of the weekend.
I couldn't help but smile as the game ended. Here he came on his scooter to shake hands.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, there's the epitome of Division III athletics, and I know all of our players extended their best to him as well.
Yeah. By the way, I mean this dead seriously. They had a fascinating finish. It was a 10-point game when he got injured with a minute 17. There's a lot to play for. You can get back in and win a game if you hit a couple of shots there. Both teams called off the dogs. They ran off shot clocks, turned the ball over back to each other. They didn't want to play another second. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, but as competitive as the CCIW is, and as tight as that game really was, to be honest, could you have done that? Is that something that's crossed your mind? And I don't mean that as a negative in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that's a different mentality.
Well, it is, and again, I think maybe that's the best of Division III.
Yeah.
And I obviously wasn't there, and so wouldn't want to judge anybody's decisions. It certainly sounded like the right thing to do, and I know everybody seemed to feel like that was in the best interest of all parties.
Yeah.
So more power to them.
Yeah, granted, 20-30 minutes can cool off competitive juices as well, which can be a factor there. Hey, listen, we have the picture of Nolan Ebel on the website for a reason, promoting the show, because he is your all-everything at this point, leading the team at 17 points a game. 3 rebounds a game, though that's not a team high, is certainly a significant number. 43 assists leads the way. He shoots 52% from the floor, 45% from beyond the arc, and 84% from the free throw line. Outside of rebounding, anything he can't do for you?
I think the thing that I was most excited about last night, he had 9 assists and 1 turnover.
Wow.
That's one of the things I've really been encouraging is for him. He's demanding so much attention now from the defense. He's got a chance to make everybody else better, and I think he's really starting to understand that. And obviously, he's just really having a terrific year. And his running mate is an All-American player as well, and Chris Orange. And I think the 2 of them give us as good a backcourt, certainly as there is at this level. I thought when we played Illinois State in the preseason, I thought we had the best backcourt on the floor. So I'm really high on those guys, and they're doing a terrific job.
We'll get back to guard play in the conference, but it kind of brings it up. Christian Orange, obviously he was the hero 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament, got a lot of attention. Hasn't gotten the same amount of attention, but he's still second on the team in points, still shoots 48% from the floor, 41% from beyond the arc. He's still a significant portion of your game, but it seems like he's, spotlight-wise, not necessarily in the spotlight. Is that a good thing, maybe?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, when you got a guy that was a Final Four all-tournament guy as a sophomore, a preseason All-American as a junior, and we're not talking about him, I think that speaks volumes about where our team, what we're capable of, because so much of our strength is our balance. And I think Nolan is scoring a few more points, but I looked at our shot attempts the other day. I think we're distributing the ball well. I think we've had a number of different guys lead us in scoring, and certainly Chris is having a great. We always talk in terms of what kind of year you having. Well, how good's our team doing? I think so many coaches talk about, well, this guy's scoring a lot of points, or this guy should be MVP because he had such. Well, how many games are you winning? I always get to the end of the year and think the players that were the most valuable helped their team win the most, and that's what our guys are really dialed into, and certainly Chris is one of those guys.
The other guy I wanted to bring up, you and I didn't get a chance to talk pregame, or pre-show, but you and I have talked in the last year. Pearson Warford's back on the team. Only got a handful of games last year and before things went kind of off the rails. I'm not out in Rock Island. I'm not going to say anything, but what's it mean to have Pearson back on the show, Yeah, mentioning him on the show, but back on the team and contributing the way he is?
Yeah, he's had, 2 season-shortened years, and, of course, last year, tearing his ACL in our game against the University of Illinois, he was averaging 11.7 rebounds a game when he got hurt. And I think he is just now starting to really be full speed. Physically he's been cleared for a couple months, but I think from a confidence standpoint and a rhythm standpoint, just in the last few weeks, he's really hit his stride. I think he's averaging 7 rebounds a game. And he's another guy. He makes everybody better. I think he energizes our team. Our guys like playing with him. They get confidence from him because, he's a gamer and a great competitor and a terrific teammate. So, just great to have him back in the mix.
We've talked about it a lot, of how you guys have knocked on the door. For a while it was knocking on the door just to get to Salem, the Final Four. Then you got there and it was knocking on the door and finally winning a national championship. What's it going to take this year, and is this the type of team that can do it?
Well, I think it is. I think this is a type of team. I think we've had 5 or 6 teams, that were capable of winning a national championship. And, a couple of years we got beaten overtime several years ago by Wash U on their way to a title. St. Thomas beat us in a heck of a game, went on to win. I think like 4 years we got beat by the team that went on to win Stevens Point, won the national championship. So, you got to catch some breaks. Matchups are key. You got to be playing your best at the right time. You got to stay healthy. There's a lot of variables that go into play, but this is a team that I think has the makeup and the talent and the mentality to make another great run. I will say, Dave, we love sharing the fact that we've won more NCAA tournament games here at Augustana in the last 4 years than any program in America at any level.
Yeah.
There's 1,100, Division I, II, and III teams. We've won 15 NCAA tournament games the last 4 years. That's more than Villanova, more than Duke, more than Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And so we've had an unbelievable run. But like you said, would sure love to take one more step and cut down the nets in what now Fort Wayne, right?
Yeah. A little shorter drive for you guys than it's been in the past, should you get there. Back to the conference. There hasn't been an undefeated conference team in, I think, since I was born. In the 1970s. It's a running joke that the Miami Dolphins even have a case of champagne on ice for when the next team loses. You guys have come close. I'm not saying anything at 5-0. There's a lot to play for, but does that matter?
Well, it doesn't, and it's just not something we talk about. I will say we talk a lot about winning the conference, because if we could do that this year, a team has gone undefeated in CCIW back in the early 70s. No program in the history of the league has won or shared 5 consecutive conference titles, and that's what we're trying to do this year. So what we're trying to do, to me, is even greater than having an undefeated regular season. We're trying to win a 5th consecutive CCIW championship. And, would I love to be 16-0? That'd be great. I don't think that's realistic at all. But our drive for 5, as we call it, to me would be historic. I mean, it's 70-plus years of conference play. No program, not the great North Park teams, or the great Wesleyan teams, the great Augie teams. No program's ever won 5 consecutive titles. So to me, that would be an historic achievement.
I agree. You've got Elmhurst ahead of you, and then Carthage this week, and obviously the rest of the conference schedule out after that. What are you expecting out of Elmhurst and Carthage this week?
Oh, I think Elmhurst has a terrific team. They've got one of the premier players in the league in Rhodey, their point guard. They've got a physical, big, strong front line, skilled wings. They're well coached. I look at the next couple of weeks, and I think we'll know if we're for real or not, because 3 of our next 4 games are on the road, and we've got Carthage at home. And I think every game you play, you just feel like. I know when I break it down and look at our next opponent, I just feel like we're playing the Golden State, and I see all our flaws every time you prepare. But it's a tough road, and his conference play is all across the country, whatever conference you're in. The league play is different, and it just more familiarity, more intensity, and more history, and so league play's tough, and I expect we'll have some real battles on our hands.
Well, Gray, as always, enjoy chatting with you. I appreciate the time to talk about the Vikings. I feel like, maybe it was too early, but I know we're going to talk a lot about the CCIW the rest of the season, so we figured we'd get things rolling here tonight. So I appreciate the time you took to join us. Good luck the rest of the way. Fascinating to see how it all turns out. As always, give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, well, appreciate all you do for the D3 Hoops, Dave, and enjoy watching that game of the Bears and the Eagles. It's going to be fun for you to watch.
Well, anything could be fun versus what I watched out of the Ravens, to be honest with you. But thanks for that tease. Really appreciate it. I'm now nervous.
Look forward to visiting with you down the road.
Definitely. Take care of yourself, sir. Talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks, Dave.
Gray Giovanni joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. I saw it was a line. Gray and I have joked about this in the past. There's the group on the fans, the student section on the other side that always wears jackets and takes them off when Gray takes his off. And the running joke is, when does Gray take off his jacket? Usually in frustration with his team or with officiating or a combination of those two items, or maybe something else. Who knows? And I saw someone make a comment that I think in the last game of the game before that, he took it off with about 9.5 minutes left to go in the first half. That's early. Gray, I know, has gotten into the habit of trying to take it off in the second half just to keep those students from having to be able to take it off themselves. But great, thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks for not ruining the Bears game for me. Again, they got Elmhurst ahead of them on the road on the 9th, which is Wednesday. They're then at home against Carthage. The one to make is the next week. Then they're on the road against Wheaton and Illinois Wesleyan. Remember, Illinois Wesleyan's already come to Rock Island this season. It was a barn burner of a game. Now Augustana's got to go to Wheaton and go to Illinois Wesleyan. They have the return trip with Wheaton in February. They still got North Central to play again. This is going to be an interesting CCIW battle. I'm not even going to go on a limb and tell you if anybody can get through it undefeated. I think that drive for 5, as he says, is far more interesting. Before I go, I want to take a quick side trip here. Coming up next, Ryan Scott will join us. Saw something interesting, and sometimes I don't quite grasp the mentality. You know what? No, we're going to wait for the other break. Before Ryan comes on, I want to tell you about why I don't quite sometimes understand the mentality of coaches. Sometimes you got to understand the situation in front of you. I saw a really interesting one. Remember I teased that Trine women? They played Olivet. Come back after the break. Something I spotted when I watched back on the game that kind of jumped out at me. Take a break. When we come back, more Hoopsville. Ryan Scott will join us. We'll do a top 25 double take, as it were, because we're voting for the first time in about 2.5 some odd weeks. Or is it 3? I've lost track. Got a lot to figure out ourselves. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Back with more after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Big shots. Teamwork. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Krager Center in Salem.
Bounces right back with a triple. Great job here. And that'll do it!
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and get your tickets today.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the program. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Got about 25 minutes left to go in the show. We'll spend about 20 of them with Ryan Scott talking about the top 25s. And then we'll wrap things up. Don't forget, we're on the air Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern time as well. Pretty much Sundays and Thursdays, 7 o'clock Eastern for the rest of the season. Super Bowl weekend will be a caveat to that. We haven't figured out our exact plans, but be tuned because we got a surprise coming for you in that category, but we're not announcing it anytime soon. All right, tease this at the beginning. It's going to kind of step my way into things. I decided to take in a little bit of the Trine Olivet women's game the other night. You may be asking me why. Yeah, I had an opportunity to watch Trine. Kind of curious of how good they are. Trine had Olivet obviously easily covered, but what I saw in the fourth quarter kind of surprised me, and kind of doing some research later, it, kind of figured out some things that didn't make any sense. Trine's got Olivet easily covered. The game is essentially over. They're playing out the clock, and Trine basically puts in all their reserves. There's some players who had played, some players who hadn't played. Obviously, the starter's not in the game. Olivet's coach decides to throw on a full court press. That made no logical sense to me. To the point that I had to go ask some people if I was seeing this right. Was there somebody out there that I didn't realize? Was there something going on? Was the score maybe closer than the scoreboard was telling me it was? I mean, we're talking about a 20, 30-point game or something to that effect. I don't understand coaches sometimes. We can talk about coaches who don't let us see archives of broadcasts because they're paranoid, even though every single file of every single game is being shared across every single medium out there. Every coach sees it. They share talking points at meetings. So I don't get that. I don't get coaches who want to hide their starters sometimes. I don't get coaches who want to play games with their uniforms to make it hard on us. There was a set of uniforms that, thank goodness, we were courtside in Vegas for Pat and I, or it would have been a nightmare. Why are you putting on a full court press in a game that's a blowout and you're being blown out against the reserves? If I had been the head coach, I kid you not, if I had been the head coach, I would have put my starters back in and thrown it down their throats. I don't get it sometimes. It's not a learning experience at that point. You're not teaching your team anything at that point. It just didn't make any sense to me. And sometimes I just do not understand coaches. And by the way, I thought Olivet would be better by this point in time. Their men's program has certainly come. I just didn't understand. And by the way, I'm not knocking on Olivet only because I've seen this from other programs. I've seen the opposite. G.P. Gromacki's trying to call off the dogs at Amherst because he's destroying teams. Why would you full court press when you're getting destroyed in a game and they've put in their reserves to clearly signify to you, we're doing our best not to kill you here? I just didn't understand it. with that in mind, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, who would you vote for number one? I've been impressed with how Trine women's basketball has been playing. And while it's not necessarily the topic of conversation for Ryan Scott, because, you know, he usually talks about men's primarily, I am kind of curious on his take. I go to him, and it turns out our graphic or our thing is not working. So bear with me here as I'm just going to quickly add his screen here. Here we go. There it is. Just have to go through some details. So, again, we've got Thomas More at the top, and we have, who is it? We have Bowden. Both of them playing well, but who do you select? You know, who do you pick? Here we go. I'm just trying to switch over to the right screen for Ryan, who we know who is there to enjoy this with us. Why is this not working? Come on. It's grabbing the wrong window is the problem here. There he is. We'll get him in here momentarily as I just got to shrink the screen. Otherwise, you see a really big picture of Ryan, and I know Ryan well enough to tell you that he doesn't want to see he doesn't want us to see all of him. He just wants us to see some of him. Now joining us via Skype, it is Ryan Scott. Sir, hey, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Glad to finally be here.
Yes, thanks for taking the time to join us. You've been there the whole time. People just didn't realize it. Quickly on women, if you were voting, because I know you've been paying attention, Bowden with an undefeated record with a really significant win over Tufts, Thomas More with 21 victories already over some really good teams, but a nail-biter against Texas Dallas. Who would you vote number one?
So it would have been Thomas More, no question, up until the other day. I didn't get to see the Bowden-Tufts game to actually see how Bowden was playing. Okay. And that's the one caveat I'll give in this. I'm on Thomas More's side, other than the fact I didn't actually see Bowden in that game, which I imagine could have swayed my decision, because that was a pretty impressive win over a very good team.
Yeah, to say the least. Very impressive. Thomas More fascinates me because they have now played 21. They'll play their 26th game, I believe, tomorrow, Monday, before they get, basically the rest of the season off. They will play essentially 5 more games if we assume they get all the way through the ACAA 2-round tournament. They're good, but we may not be able to really know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see them play Mary Hardin Baylor tomorrow, I think, right?
Agreed.
Tuesday.
Yeah, tomorrow, I believe, yeah.
That'll be really interesting to see. I know Gordon's been on here before talking about how they're a lot deeper than they have been in previous years, and the offense is spread around, but they still have I'm a big numbers guy. Madison Temple is just incredible right now. I looked today because Pat was asking me about career marks that are coming up. She's currently active D3 women's basketball player. She has the most points. She's top 10 in assists. She leads in free throw percentage and field goal percentage as career active players right now.
Wow. That's sick. And here's the funny thing is she played her freshman year the last year Sydney Moss was playing. I remember Gordon saying, I don't even remember she was on the team. I kind of remember she was on the team. Yeah. Imagine if she had gotten, I don't mean, it's not negative, but a full freshman year.
Well, she played 3 years where she wasn't the point guard.
Right. Right. She had a much better point guard, to be blunt. As a point. Madison is darn good at what she does now. Yeah, a fascinating team. And then Bowden's showing they're good. I saw Amherst. I'm shocked Eastern Connecticut beat them. I'll be blunt.
Yeah.
Here's the great part.
Yeah, and that's Amherst has been looking really good. I think they've looked good the last couple games, better than they were earlier in the season. So
agreed.
And they're very young. So
and here's the funny thing. If anybody listened to the D3Hoops.com or the D3 Hoops Classic Conversations, I talked with GP Gromacki and Hannah Fox after she poured in 43 freaking points in a game against Westfield State. GP's words to me, it's a good thing we didn't have to do a second take because I almost stopped talking. I was so stunned. He said, for the first time in 12 years, I put on the scouting report, we need to score points. He said, we decided we were not going to try and slow them down. We were just going to play their same game. And I went, you did what? They went toe-for-toe with Westfield. Not that Westfield, I just mean in the system. They went toe-for-toe system-wise with Westfield State and said, okay, we'll score. And you could see Westfield about halfway through the game going, no, we want to slow down. We want to go half court here.
Well, and that is what happens if you're not in a system where you're also still recruiting these top athletes. Some of those teams get used to being able to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're playing at that pace with a team like Amherst and the talent they have, you're just not going to make fewer mistakes than they do.
That's true.
And it's going to be hard to win those games. I mean, that's what happens. Whitman doesn't play the system, but they play that fast pace.
Right.
And I think sometimes they get used to being able to make a lot of mistakes. And then when it gets to the end of the season and they're playing really talented teams, it comes back to bite them.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a great example of how that works. I was amazed. The next night they came out struggling. Did Amherst, and I watched G.P. Kormacki literally not coaching. The only thing I saw him do at one point was tell Hannah Fox to take the ball during a possession to control at the point. Otherwise, he let his team figure it out. Then they figured it out, went on a 35-7 run, and said, thank you, good night, and see you later.
Yeah, I mean, the talent there is, I don't want to say sick, because that's a negative connotation, but it's,
I know what you're saying.
It's just incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there are a lot of ways that his teams could win. And the fact that they do it focused on defense and with the discipline they do is even more a testament to what he gets them to buy in for. So, I mean, it's impressive all around. And I'm just glad there's so many great teams on the women's side this year that it's not just, you know, a runaway one or two teams at the top. You know, there's 5 or 6 that could win anything.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And the top 25 voters actually have to work on their ballots like us men voters have having to be doing for years now. They actually, the women have had a lot of losses that they have to contend with, and so have we, Gordon, Ryan. I am not surprised that we're going to vote tomorrow with a plethora of losses and data to try and figure out. What I am surprised in is there's teams like Johns Hopkins, which I said at the beginning of the show, who went 0-2 at the D3Hoops.com Classic, and I need to find a way to get them in my top 25 because they were that darn good.
Yeah. I noticed the same thing. The last team off the top 25 was Illinois Wesleyan, who over the break lost twice.
Right.
But it was, 2-point loss to Whitman and 6 points to Stevens Point, and I feel like those 2 losses have actually improved their standing in my mind.
Agreed. Agreed. It doesn't. Usually losses help answer questions for us, or at least tell us, okay, forget it. I'm moving on. Those 2 teams are great examples of where 2 losses went, no. Now I'm confused.
Yeah.
They really are good. They're better than who I think. They're better than them, but that team's still winning. That's where sometimes I wish people would appreciate that the top 25 is a breathing thing. That we're looking at teams not just straight up. We're looking at the entire body. Greg Mason made a great point. His center squad's 12-2. They played WNL, who's a good team. They played TCNJ, who's a good team. Those teams are all probably in the top 50, which means in your and my world, we're considering them in some degree.
Yep.
That's a good thing to have all these great teams. But, man, where do you even start tomorrow besides Nebraska Wesleyan's number 1?
Yeah, well, I did it this afternoon. Sunday afternoon's usually my habit. So I've got the whole thing sitting in front of me. I've already submitted and everything, Dave. So.
I haven't even looked. Outside of just my usual work.
I was really surprised, honestly. Not only how many teams are in contention, but just the teams that I had sort of written off that when you're comparing where they are now after the holiday break, maybe are a little better than I thought they were. I made a joke on Twitter already tonight. I said, I'm really confident in 1 through 4. I think 8's pretty good. I think 10's all right. Everybody else is too high.
I wanted to reply, but I was too busy. I wanted to say, everybody's too high. That's been the problem for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, we talked behind the scenes. It seems like for MIT, AJ Jerko, the point guard, who's been having just a career year, as his senior year this year, he's been doing so great. Apparently had a pretty bad injury the other night. I haven't heard updates on what's happening, but they're probably going to be without him for a while. And I was saying, maybe that's not really a top 10 team without him. And then looking at it today, I've got him 7, and that might even be too low.
Yeah, that's about right. Folks, that wraps up a top 25 voter mentality in a nutshell. You know what? There's no way. I am not including him top 10. Shoot, I've got a hole between 5 and 10.
There are so many. I mean, I could go down the list and name literally a dozen teams that I'm kind of embarrassed how high they are on my ballot, but I don't know who else to put above them.
Yeah,
so.
I'm with you. Hey, anything jump out of you from the holidays? And you had the vantage point of watching the Classic from the monitor or the screen, whereas we were at home. or we're on site, which always has a different vantage point. Anything from that or anything from the holidays that jumped out of you as a surprise?
I was a little surprised that Worcester seemed to struggle over the break in a way that I didn't expect. You know, that's a team that's typically really disciplined. I'm a little worried about where they're at right now.
They at least somewhat bounced back with a win over Ohio West and New Jersey City and DePaul.
I mean, they're good. I've got them in my top 25. I'm not. I mean, we're kind of picking nits here. I've got them at 24 this week.
Okay.
I wasn't happy about it, but that was another one of those that was like, I don't know who I'm putting in. So, but I kind of thought they were a little bit better than that. I don't know what to make of how Whitewater went through the break. That was a little confusing. And then I realized you have a team like Plattsburgh that hasn't played in 3 weeks. So it's hard when some teams have played 4 games over the holidays. You get them in your mind and you get a better sense of maybe how they're playing right now. And how do I compare that to a team that hasn't played, since December 15th or something like that?
By the way, I just noticed we've been doing the, what was the show? Toolman Taylor. What was the show with Tim Allen?
Improvement?
Yes. You've been doing the neighbor thing with the fence.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. It actually was. I was getting a kick out of it. I'm like, we should do that. Period. That's a great gig. Get a little gimmick. I wanted to apologize. If anybody's listening to podcasts, they have no idea what we're talking about. But for a while, we were just looking at Ryan from his nose up.
All right.
Listen. We'll get back into this starting next Sunday, where we do it. Who's overrated, who's underrated. We kind of did that plus buy and sell a little bit. We won't do buy and sell every week. We'll do buy and sell every few weeks. That way we got a little bit more data to build on than just a week's reaction. But is there anybody, when you were doing the top 25, you felt was underrated by the rest of the voters that you've been pretty sold on, or did this past week or this past couple of weeks blow that apart?
So the one that surprised me when I'm really looking at the schedules and the results, St. Thomas is having a really good year. They lost that opening game in New York to Brooklyn, and I think that threw everybody off a little bit. But their results have been really strong. They've only lost that one game. They haven't lost since. They're a young team, so they're getting better. That was one of the big surprises as I was looking. Salisbury, obviously, they were winning a lot. They lost over the break, but they also had some really good wins. I've seen them in person, and I don't, frankly, understand how they're winning so many of these games. It doesn't feel like a team that should be able to do that. And then on the other side, I just don't know what's happened with Platteville.
Yeah.
They've lost a lot of games, and games I wouldn't expect them to lose, and it's the same team almost from last year. Just not sure what's happening with them right now.
I saw them in person. I wasn't blown away. I mean, they're good. They're not bad. They're good.
They're better than this record.
They should be better than this record. I can see how they've dropped some because they're inconsistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're lucky they beat Hopkins. Lucky.
Right.
Hopkins should have won that game. Yeah, that one's got. Rowan's my underrated, and I'm saying it trepidatiously because I'm going on a little bit of the word of Chuck McBreen, who basically you would have bought stock in him if you could after talking to him in our D3Hoops.com classic conversations. He spoke really highly of them, but they're the ones who beat Salisbury. They're the ones who beat somebody else. Can't find it as I'm quickly scanning my notes here. I can't find where they got that other victory. They
did just lose to F&M, which is sort of what kept them a little bit down for me.
But right.
I saw them in person. This is a lot the same team. They've been a pretty young team the last couple of years, and now they're not so young anymore.
Right.
I've seen them in person. They've struggled in the post before,
okay.
And they've struggled in the spring once they've really gotten into the heart of conference play. So I'm going to give them a couple more weeks. But
I may too. But they're the ones that kind of jump out at me. They've got you see a team lose, like, oh, who did they lose to? Rowan. Oh.
Yeah.
And so that's what's jumped out. And maybe it's one of those other NJAC teams that I think I was keeping an eye on that jumped out at me. They're definitely underrated. Again, I think Hopkins is underrated, but they're also dealing with injuries. They lost their best player, but then their first 2 games back, they nearly knock off Platteville and Whitworth. In games. And granted, they were dealing with illness too. One of their main inside guys didn't play very many minutes in Vegas because he had been ill, very badly ill. Just flu-like ill for leading into those 2 games. So he didn't have a lot of energy in him. So they're kind of my underrated. This one's a little difficult considering we've had 3 weeks here, and so since we voted, can't say who's overrated because if we've been voting the last 3 weeks, this may have changed. But is there any team, and I've got my eye on one, that it's just they've been uncomfortably high?
I am looking at my list.
Well, you look, and I'll say mine. Whitewater.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the one I would come up with.
The stock. I think too many people put stock in transfers. And I don't mean that negatively. It just always takes time for transfers to come around. But I know they were undefeated until they lost to Stevens Point and Eau Claire, but there was nothing about who they played until they beat Loras that jumped out at me. And once they beat Loras, I'll freely admit, okay, Whitewater's maybe for real. I'll take a look at them, and buy into them. I like what I see. They beat Sul Ross State. Okay, wasn't expecting otherwise there. They beat Concordia, Texas. Great. Whoops, lost to Stevens Point. Okay, tough squad. Lost to Eau Claire? And it's not a knock on Eau Claire, but if Whitewater's really that good, they shouldn't be losing to Eau Claire.
Yeah, I mean, I think they may have been a little overrated. That doesn't make them bad.
No, right. And I want to, good point. I want to stress this. They're not bad. I just don't think they're 10.
Team. They were playing like a top 10 team, but they probably aren't.
Yeah, that's probably a fair way of looking at it. The overrated one's hard. Because I would have probably, if we had voted after the Loras game, I probably would have jumped them into my top 15 or top 20 at least. They would have gotten more love from me and probably gone higher. I just felt like 10 was just, even when it came out, I was like, ugh, 10 feels high. I'm not even voting for them, and 10 felt high. So that's, again, they're not bad. No, overrated doesn't mean bad. They're just maybe their ranking's too high.
Yeah, and that's such a hard one because that's such a talented team, and they were playing well to start. They didn't have a bunch of big transfers this year. They finally let the team kind of gel a little bit, and I thought maybe that was going to be what it took. And you take a couple losses. That's what happens. It's a long season.
Daryl Duncan.
Writing them off.
What'd you say?
Said I'm not writing them off.
No, I'm not writing them off. They'll stay on my radar. Daryl Duncan saying enjoyed watching the classic games, provided great commentary and play. I think I know what he's saying in post-game interviews. Well, thank you, Daryl. He also says he can't wait for Tuesday night. Yeah, I am getting the big screen ready. I'm going to have a few drinks and some snacks ready for me to go because Tuesday night it is Whitworth versus Whitman. Buckle up, folks.
First big clash.
Yeah, the first big clash of these two. I saw Whitworth in person. Better than I expected. I've had them in my top 10. Actually, I've had them 3.
Yeah, you've had them higher than I have. So
right. I had them 2 for a little bit and then moved them to 3 when I moved Augustana ahead of them. And that won't probably change. Nebraska will be Nebraska will see 1, Augustana 2, Whitworth 3. Whitman's been in my top 5. The one thing I will say about Whitworth is they can't go too deep in the bench. If they go too deep, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And you noticed that at the earlier part of the season when they got in foul trouble in a game.
There's not much margin of error.
No, there's less margin of error than there needs to be. I found that their bench, they had some more talent than I expected, if that makes any sense. But they also had a few game. The difference between that guy and the next guy came off the bench was stark. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those first four guys are just incredible.
Well, Kyle Roach is good.
Roach in college and
Roach is good, but he's trying too hard. He's got to trust his guys a little bit more. There's times in the Classic where it felt like he was trying to put everybody on his shoulders, couldn't figure out why he couldn't get a call, which shouldn't have been called in the first place, and then he's in a funk for the next 5 minutes.
Yep.
He's got to let his other guys step up. That said, Ben College is filthy.
Yeah.
And he will sneak up on you. At one point in their game, I think it wasn't against it was against Hopkins. I didn't feel like we were talking about him much, and then the next thing I know, he hits a bunch of shots, and I'm like, well, there you go. Pat was jokingly asking when we were going to change him to university, since the fad is all these colleges changing universities. John Lester I liked. I really like Jared Christie. Right. Ben Bishop frustrates me. he's a good player.
I think
he's
he frustrates
a huge presence,
right?
But he disappears.
Yeah,
he'll be gone and standing right in the middle of the floor.
And that's sort of what I meant. That Roach College, Leicester, Christie, really, really good players, and they've got some other talented guys, but it's not super deep. And if one of those guys has a bad night, it's going to be a close game. I mean,
their other problem in the Hopkins game was Kevin Crosno, who I think's better than advertised. Got in foul trouble, only played 9 minutes in that contest. He certainly made his presence known against Emory and Henry. Sam Lees is a good player, inconsistent. I like Isaiah Hernandez. I think he's pretty good. But here's the thing. None of the guys I mentioned, including Liam Fitzgerald, who apparently got into the game, but I barely remember when, none of them have the size and presence of Bishop. So when they have to remove Bishop, because either he's inconsequential or foul trouble, or they need to go to a different style of game, you lose a huge presence inside in Bishop.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see Tuesday how much he can play anyway, just with the style that
right.
Goes. They rely on the guards and the ball handlers a lot more. What was so impressive when they beat Whitman last year was that they basically beat a team of 12 guys with 4. And that's just a hard thing to do on a consistent basis. So it'll be interesting to see how the styles go and what happens on Tuesday night.
And by the way, Linfield's for real. Yeah, this conference is going to be fascinating. We could have what we've seen on the women's side on the men's side, and that's 3 NWC teams coming out.
Yeah, I think Linfield's going to have to win that tournament for that to happen, but
we'll see. Let's see how they do during the regular season in conference play. If they can knock off one of the Wits at least once,
we'll see.
I think that changes the equation. But Shannon Rosenberg's got a squad there now, and I'm glad to see it. And George Fox is lurking too. That Northwest Conference is turning fun. But anyway, Tuesday night, I suspect I'll have it on the big screen while chatting with you on the computer. Any other surprise before I let you go?
I guess I have to mention Gordon.
Not Gordon Mann, you mean the school.
The school, Gordon College of Wenham, Massachusetts, the arch rival of my alma mater. They've only lost once this year, which was a terrible loss early in the season to Ramapo. But they have only lost once, and they just beat Nichols the other night. I've seen them a couple times because they played ENC twice this year.
Already?
Yeah, well, it's the rivalry thing, and they're not in the same conference anymore, so they scheduled
right.
They scheduled a home and home over the break.
I forgot about that.
They're good.
It's hurting you, isn't it?
They've always had incredible perimeter defense. So the field goal percentage defense has always been really good, which keeps you in games. They've got really quality rebounders and a guard who's starting to assert himself. Demers, I think, is how you say it. And they're not going to be a contender for the title or anything, but it's a good conference and a conference that's getting better. And I think they're at the top of it right now. So someone to watch.
I agree. It will be interesting to see how that all plays out. I noticed Gordon with the win over Nichols. I kind of went, and I know it hurt you to talk about Gordon.
It's
in any way, shape, or form. You'd rather be talking about how bad they are.
Yeah, there's some deep-seated scars down there.
Clearly, sir. Appreciate the time as always. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I feel like I'm just excited. I feel like this was the right break. We had the right games. I didn't feel like there were too many of them, but there were enough that we were involved, and I'm refreshed and ready to go for the final push here the last couple of weeks, and March is here before you know it.
That last part's the key. It is going to be here way sooner than we realize it. On that, by the way, I'm going to send you my ballot. If you could fill it out for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm not really ready to vote. Not at all. And from what I'm hearing from hints from people who are trying to be nice to me, I might be throwing more than my ballot around tonight while watching the Bears game, but I digress. You didn't watch. You were watching the Golden Globes.
Well, I walked from one room to the other to turn on the Golden Globes, which was on the same channel as the game, and the team that was winning changed in the time that it took me to get from one room.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a good hint. I like the fact that we're going to hell of a game at the end. All right, I'll take it. Better than what I watched earlier out of the Baltimore team. Not surprised that happened in the slightest shape.
Some liberal use out of your fast forward button for the first 3 quarters there. Let's say that.
Oh, I tend to. Usually teams take about 30 seconds between plays, so I use the 30-second fast forward thing. It's really helpful. Works nicely.
Make it a 30-minute one there at some point. Yeah,
all right. Well, true. You know what? Yeah, I could see that. I needed one earlier today, to be honest. All right, sir. Thanks so much. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Ryan Scott joining us on the Skype Hoopsville hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to join us. That was fun. We'll trim that down a little bit more as we move forward, have some more fun with it, and get a little buy and sell in the future as well. We'll get Bob Quillman mixed in. Sometimes we'll try and get some women's points of view on Thursday nights, for example. A reminder, on Thursday we will debut our WBCA Center Court segment, and next Sunday we will debut our NABC Coaches Corner segment as well. That's going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank all of our guests for coming on. They include, as we mentioned, Emmanuel women's coach and now the winningest women's coach in Division III basketball history, Andy Yosinoff from Emmanuel. Also want to thank Greg Mason from Center and Gray Giovanni from Augustana, and, of course, Ryan Scott, as always. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Daryl, especially, thanks for the comments at the end. Dan says, Oshkosh, a question for Coach Gray. I didn't see this. Lost the coat in 2 games, cumulative 11 minutes last year versus Oshkosh. True or false? Gray lost the coach in 2 games, cumulative 11 minutes last year. You know what? It's possible, Dan. I'm not positive. That's a good question. I'm not sure if he did. You just tuned in. He was already on the show, so I can't ask him about it now. Again, top 25s come out tomorrow, brand new ones. In the evenings, our deadlines are like 6 o'clock at night, so you won't see them until the evenings. There will be some movement. I don't think there's going to be a lot of the top positions on the men's side. Women's, it's going to be interesting. Let's watch Bowdoin and Thomas More, see who ends up being the number 1 team. I think Bowdoin may have made a case to stay at number 1. But Thomas Moore's got one more game of significance tomorrow against Mary Hardin Baylor, being a Monday. That game will be a big determination. And then, by the way, the Saints can go home and rest. If you did not notice, keep an eye out. I want to thank University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire Athletics and Randolph-Macon College Athletics for joining the D3Hoops.com sponsor advertisers list. We will have more we hope to add in the next week or two, not only schools but others. I want to thank them, though, for joining us and being part of our efforts to stay on the air, because, folks, this takes bills. We are going to try and bring out another element for you, those of you who like to donate to the cause, as it were. We have an idea. Just need to get it off the ground. And actually, believe it or not, in the next week or so, I've got some time to focus on that. You would have thought in my 20 hours it took me to fly to Vegas on December 26th and 27th that I would have had time to do such work. I did not. I had wasted enough of that time trying to figure out where my plane was located while sitting in the Indianapolis airport for about 11 or 12 hours, or 10 or 11 hours. And we had some work still on the Classic to do. And by the time I got to Vegas, I was brain dead, and the rest of that trip went as you would have expected. It was a blur. I came back more tired because I had started tired. But yeah, 20 hours. If you did not hear the story, you can go back to look on it on Twitter. It took me to get from Baltimore to Vegas via airplane. So it went Baltimore to Indianapolis to Vegas was the scheduled trip. It went Baltimore to Indianapolis to Detroit to Vegas. Luckily, the trip back was uneventful, but I decided to try and rest and not work on sponsorships. But we will work on that in the near future, and hopefully you'll see more here on the show. We are late, and we got to get off the air because we made a goal of trying not to go too far in overtime on these shows. On Thursday, excuse me, we will be primarily having guests from the East Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes and West regions. Sometimes we dabble with the South when we need to, schedule-wise, and the WBCA Center Court will debut. So we'll jam in a bunch there. I will tell you, if you're paying attention, normally we have a guest from every region that we talk to. Notice we did not from the Atlantic tonight. We will not guarantee all 4 regions get a guest. We are trying to keep the shows from being overslammed at least through January. In February, if we feel that we still have enough content and we need to talk about each region, or at least have a guest from each region, We will most likely expand the show to another hour on those occasions and get everybody in. But in the meantime, we're hoping to just stick to 4 guests a show for the time being. But we'll see how it progresses. Sometimes we may need to sneak in a 5th. Again, if you got guest ideas, if you got thoughts, questions, comments, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Facebook us also at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We are on Instagram at D3Hoopsville, but though we tend to use that just as a promotional tool, not necessarily a conversational tool. So just keep that in mind. You can use Instagram to find out who we might have on the show down the road. Thanks, everybody who came on. Again, our coaches and, of course, the sports information directors. They include Kyle at center. We also want to thank Dave Rath at Augustana and, Dan at Emmanuel for their help as well. You've been watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Thanks to the WBCA and NABC, Women's Basketball Coaches Association and National Association of Basketball Coaches. Also thanks to the support of Wisconsin Eau Claire Athletics and Randolph-Macon College Athletics. We will be back here Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern. If you have I like to use this show in any way, re-air it in any portion, we appreciate that. But please contact us so that we know about it and give you the proper permissions, because Hoopsville is owned by DMAC Productions, myself. So give me a call, as they say. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back here now on Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern. Good night.